You ever hear a local warning and just laugh it off? Well, that's what I did, and it was a pretty big mistake. I grew up in a small mountain town tucked deep in the Appalachians. You know, the kind of place where people still tell stories like they're a fact. Ghosts, lights in the woods, banshees screaming in the holler after midnight. Everyone seems to have a tale. Most of them are just that, tales, you know? But there's one I used to hear way back that always stuck with me, you know? Mostly because it felt like something that they really believed. They called it the Fog Road. They say it only shows up on mornings when the fog sits heavy in the trees. It's not on any map, not marked by signs or a trail paint or anything like that. Just if you find it and you follow it, you might not come back the same. At least that's what they say, you know. You know, they say it leads to another world, and other people say it just never really ends. But they all agree on one thing. If you see the woman, turn back. A couple weeks ago on a Thursday morning, I was out early, you know, just hiking alone. I had a rough week. I just wanted to clear my head before work. The trailhead was empty. The fog was thick. I couldn't really see more than 30 feet in any direction. About a mile in, I saw something strange. It was like a side path. It didn't look like a game trail. It was too straight and too clean, almost like someone had swept through the forest floor or something. I'd hiked this loop a dozen times before and never seen it. I figured maybe it was new, you know, maybe the park opened something up or something like that. So anyway, I took it. I didn't think of the stories, at least not yet. At first, it felt peaceful. The air was cool, the trees were dripping dew. The silence was kind of nice. Then I saw her. She came walking out of the mist about 10 yards ahead, a gray dress, long black hair, barefoot. I figured she was just another hiker like me that had just kind of taken a weird turn, you know. I gave her a polite nod as we passed, but 10 minutes later I saw her again, walking the opposite way. I stopped, and I turned to watch her pass, but this time she didn't look at me. She didn't even blink. Her hair covered most of her face, but I could see her mouth moving, like she was whispering something that I couldn't hear. And then she was just gone into the fog, you know. At that point, I thought maybe there were two people wearing similar clothes or something, you know. I mean, that would be weird, but not necessarily impossible. But 5 minutes later, I saw her again. This time she was closer. Not like she'd walked up to me or anything, but like the path had bent and she was just waiting on the other side of it. I stopped walking, and so did she. And when I turned around to go back the other way, she was there too, behind me, silent and still. I don't know how long I stood there. My legs started to shake. The air felt colder and heavier, and all around me just fog. You know, thick, wet, unmoving. It was almost like a wall. I picked a direction, not toward either version of her, and I just started walking, but the forest just wasn't right anymore. Birds were gone, no wind, no bugs, just the sound of my own feet crunching in the leaves. And then there were footsteps behind me. Soft. It was like they were pacing me. I didn't turn around. I didn't look. I just started to run. I don't know how long I ran for, but I don't know. It's just like everything's a blur. But at some point, I tripped over a root or something and cracked my knee and rolled down a short slope. But when I stopped, the fog was a little thinner, and I could see trees again. Real trees, familiar ones. I limped until I found the main trail and then the parking lot. And then my truck. I got in, I locked the doors, and I just sat there in silence, trying to catch my breath, telling myself none of this was real, but then I saw her again. Just past the tree line, still walking, still coming towards me. I drove home. I didn't even look in the rearview mirror. I showered, I laid on the floor for about an hour trying to calm down. Eventually, I convinced myself that I'd imagined it, Maybe it was stress, the fog, dehydration, whatever. Maybe my brain just made it up. Well, that worked for a few days, but this morning I woke up early, same time, same fog outside. I made coffee and looked out the window, and there she was, standing at the edge of the trees behind my yard. Gray dress, bare feet, hair hanging into her face. I should have listened. I should have turned back when I first saw her, but I didn't. And now it's like she's getting closer. I grew up in southern West Virginia, not far from where the hills start to fold into each other like waves, It's the kind of place where people still wave from their porches and coal dust just clings to everything like a memory that won't wash off. Me and my buddy Travis started getting into urban exploring a couple years ago. Old houses, train cars, abandoned bunkers. We never messed with anything dangerous or off limits. Mostly we were just chasing that feeling, Quiet places with a history where time just seemed to stop. And that's how we found the mine. It wasn't marked on any official map, but Travis's uncle, who used to work for the mining company back in the 80s, told him about it after a few drinks. He said there was an old drift mine up along Harlan Ridge, sealed off after a collapse in the early 2000s. He didn't really say much more, just that folks used to hear things when they worked near the shaft, things that weren't right. He changed the subject after that. We packed light. Headlamps, gloves, walkies, a flare, and, some backup lights. The entrance was harder to find than we expected. Brush had grown thick over it, and the mouth of the shaft looked more like a sinkhole than a tunnel. Someone had done a half-assed job on boarding it up years ago, but it wasn't hard to slip through. Inside, the air was cool and damp. It had that deep earth smell, like wet stone and old rust. The walls were still lined with timber supports, most of them rotting or bent from years of pressure, but we kept our voices low. In mines like this, sound carries real weird, It bounces around and kind of plays tricks with you. We were maybe 100 yards in when we both stopped. There was a sound ahead of us. Not footsteps exactly, more like breathing, deep and uneven, like someone was sitting just out of sight, trying not to be heard. I lifted my light, but the tunnel had curved slightly ahead, and the darkness swallowed up everything beyond it. "Hello?" I called. "Are you all right down there?" There was just silence. Then clear as day from somewhere deeper in the shaft. "Help me." It wasn't a scream. It wasn't panic, just flat and calm, like someone had been waiting. Travis looked at me, and I saw the doubt flicker across his face. "Someone might have gotten in and got stuck," he said. "Could be homeless or something." "There's no signs of a camp," I whispered. "No fresh footprint, just ours." Still, we pressed in. We rounded the bend where the voice had come from and found nothing, just more tunnel stretching into the black. No footprints, no gear, no sign that anyone had been there recently. The dust on the floor had only our boot prints in it. That's when something changed. The air seemed to get heavier. It's not colder, just heavier, like the pressure had dropped or something. My ears popped, and Travis turned to me and whispered, "I don't like this, man." Neither did I. That's when we heard it again. "Help me." But this time it didn't come from ahead, it came from behind us. We spun around, the lights shaking, the shaft was still empty. Travis started backing up. We turned and we headed back, fast but careful, not wanting to make a stupid mistake in the dark. It felt like the tunnel had gotten longer. I know it sounds crazy, but the trip back took twice as long. When we reached the entrance, I stopped dead. My light scanned over the opening, and I couldn't see daylight, just like packed leaves and junk, clumps of dirt piled into the mouth of the shaft like someone had buried it from the outside. Travis said this wasn't here when we came in. Someone's screwing with us. But we hadn't heard anyone. No footsteps, no digging, nothing. Just those words echoing from nowhere, I helped him dig. It took us maybe 10 minutes to clear enough space to squeeze through. My heart didn't slow down until we were back in the sunlight. We didn't talk much. We just hiked back down the ridge. Both of us kept looking over our shoulders, half expecting to see someone standing there at the tree lines. When we got back to the truck, we just sat there in silence for a long time. Then Travis finally said, "So, what the hell was that?" Well, I didn't have an answer. I didn't have an answer then, and I still don't have an answer. I haven't been back to Harlan Ridge since, but sometimes when the wind blows through the trees outside my place, it whistles through the leaves in just the right way, and for a second I think I hear it again. Help me. It's like I never really left the mine. I grew up in a small town in the Appalachians, the kind of place where the trees outnumber people by like 100 to 1, and no one locks their doors because the forest is a better gatekeeper than any deadbolt. I've hunted these ridges since I was 12. I know every trail, every deer path, every place a black bear might bed down, or at least I thought I did. Last November, just after the first frost, I headed out alone toward the northern edge of Pine Hollow. I was looking for signs of early rutting bucks, scrapes, rubs, anything to give me a lead. I'd set up camp about 3 miles in, where the ridgeline curls around into a bowl-shaped valley. It's quiet out there. Too quiet sometimes, but, I kind of like that. Or at least I used to. The first night, I heard it. It was just past 1 a.m. I was halfway dozing off in my tent, and I heard what sounded like a woman screaming. Sharp and high. It echoed through the trees like it was moving. Like it was following the wind or something. I sat up, I unzipped the tent, and I listened. But there was only silence. No rustling, no owls, not even the usual dry crackle of leaves shifting in the breeze. I stayed up the rest of the night, with my 30-30 across my lap. I told myself it was probably a fox or a bobcat. They make noises that could peel the paint off of something. Especially like if they're in heat or fighting, but it just didn't sit right with me. It didn't sound like any animal I'd ever heard, and I've heard plenty. The next morning I mentioned it to Cal. He's a retired game warden who lives in the cabin, just at the foot of the trailhead. He squinted at me like he was weighing whether or not to say something. "You were camped past Dead Man's Draw?" "North of it, closer to the old fire line," I said back. He nodded slowly. "You ever hear the screaming tree?" I gave a short laugh. "Sounds like a ghost story to me." Cal didn't smile. "It's real. Or at least that's a tree folks around here don't go near. It's a hollow white pine. It's a big one. Sits just west of Dry Creek. Locals say it whistles when it's angry. When it's angry? That's the word they use, Cal said. He shrugged. Screams sometimes. My dad said it was cursed. Said someone died in it back before I was born. Maybe a girl, maybe a witch. He never made it clear. I figured it was just superstition. Backwoods folks talk like that all the time, like the forest is alive and everything in it. Still, I couldn't shake the unease I felt. I kept thinking about that scream. And you know how human it sounded. The next night, I moved camp closer to Dry Creek. I told myself I just wanted to check the terrain, but deep down I think I just wanted to hear it again. And maybe, prove to myself it was nothing. I didn't have to wait long. Around midnight, the scream came again, but this time it was louder. Closer, like carried through the timbers in a way that I can't quite explain. It wasn't just noise, it felt like something trying to speak through the sound. There was pain in it, desperation, and it was coming from one direction, west. I grabbed my flashlight and a rifle. I pulled on my boots and I followed the sound. I don't know what I thought I was doing, but maybe I just needed to prove the stories were just stories. I moved through the brush until I came to a clearing I'd never seen before, and that was strange in itself. This part of the mountain isn't that big, and I thought I knew every inch of it, but there it was, a dead circle about 40 feet wide, like the forest had receded. In the center of it, a massive white pine. Its bark was pale as bone in the moonlight, and its limbs were long and drooping like corpses hung from strings or something. The sound had stopped. I approached it slowly. The air felt wrong, heavy, like just right before a thunderstorm, When I reached the tree, I noticed something that made my stomach turn. The trunk was split open. Not from lightning and not from rot. It was like it was carved open, like something had crawled its way out from the inside. I shined my light into the hollow, and inside walls were just riddled with deep, ragged scratches, as if someone or something had tried to claw its way out. Some of the marks were streaked dark red, almost to the point of being black, and then I heard it. Not the scream, it was something else. A whisper. So soft I thought it was the wind, except it seemed to come from inside the trunk. Please. I staggered back, heart pounding. I didn't run. I wanted to, but I didn't. I backed away slowly, keeping my eyes on that hole in the pine. My light started flickering. The woods around me seemed to close in, like the trees themselves were like leaning closer. Then the forest snapped back into silence. When I got back to camp, I packed my things and I hiked out before dawn. I didn't stop walking until I reached Cal's cabin. He didn't seem surprised when I told him what I saw. I wouldn't go back there, he said. Some trees, they hold things. Some say spirits, some say pain. But something was inside that tree, I said. Something clawed to get out. He looked at me for a long moment and said, "Then the only thing left is to ask, did it get out?" I haven't been back since, but last week a young couple hiking through Dry Creek reported hearing what they called a woman wailing in the woods. They said it followed them for about a half a mile. The ranger who responded didn't find anything, but he told him to stay away from the old white pines, especially the one with the hollow trunk.